Well, we could have casts of thousands, but I don't think we will. So
Tom, I have no doubt that you prepared for a cast of thousands.
I'm ready for a cast of thousands, to be honest.
I've never known you not to be ready for anything or everything.
There's some truth to that. Okay. Are you going to track down?
Okay.
Janet, is it working? Can you hear me? Doesn't seem so.
Yeah. We cannot share until Janet enables that sharing.
Oh, because she's the host, huh?
She's the host, yes.
I wonder
Did
if
you
she
know?
can. I wonder if she can make you the co-host, and then we can patch her into the conversation, as we have already found out is possible over our telephones.
She did send us a message. She says, welcome our host. Janet, we need to have permission to share a screen.
I think you're going to have to write her in the chat room to communicate.
Okay. All right. Let's see if we can do this.
I feel like, well, I feel like I'm talking to Mrs. Lincoln and saying, well, but besides that, how was the performance tonight?
Oh, details.
And if you can't laugh at yourself, oh well.
That's right.
I wonder if laughing at yourself is a form of fun and that we're learning something by it.
Have you read the book, The Greatest Salesman in the World?
By Zig Ziglar?
Yes.
I have read something like that. It may have been that book, but I have read a book by Zig.
He's got several. This is a 1969 book, and it's really enjoyable. And he has in there, be able to laugh at yourself and at the world, because people will be laughing at you. You may as well enjoy it. And I really think that's true.
Mhm.
And another one that they have in there, which would be very much into choice theory, weak is he or she that allows his or her emotions to control his or her behaviors. But strong is he or she that allows his or her behaviors to control his or her emotions. Very nice.
Oh, that's beautiful.
That's a 1969.
Wow, that sounds like somewhere between Siddhartha and a real smart person.
All right.
All right, let's see what we have now.
Okay, now we can probably do it. All right, let's see, where are we here? Let's see. Word document. Do we have this up here?
Word is good.
Not sure that. Well, try that. That's not it.
That's it. All right, we are home free. All right, sit back. You're going to have an hour that, do you have these handouts? That's critical. Do you have, you don't have this page. Do you have this page?
I don't.
I don't.
Well, Janet,
I can put it on my, I can take a picture of it though, real quickly.
oh, we've got 40 pages.
Yeah, we can email it.
We can email it. Just
Yeah.
get us addresses. We'll walk through this though, and but let's go back to page 1 and get started. Good morning, everybody, and happy Valentine's Day early. I never like to be late for anything. In fact, I even brought my own supply of Valentine's Day buttons that I've created and have given away to my students for the last 44 years. And I love these buttons. Let's see. Some of them say, You make my heart smile. If you want a friend, be a friend. Love is free, which means that there's still one thing left that we can afford.
That's a
Never
good one.
mind. I finally found my place in life. It's with you.
Oh,
I love all of these. I really do. I would give them, I had 340 students a semester while I was teaching at K-State, and I gave buttons to all of my students on Valentine's Day and often on Halloween as well. Okay, here you have some information. People have had trouble getting into the 1981 to 2009 publications. This is now the access information to get there. msutexas.edu. And there's a little box in the lower right-hand corner. Click on it because you're not going to go anywhere if you don't. Then go to academics. Then go to colleges and graduate school. You may have to click twice. Then go to the International Journal of Reality Therapy. There you will find everything. And if you don't have all this information, and I'll leave it up for a little bit longer, but if you don't have all this information, I will have it in the next issue of the journal so that there will be plenty of accessibility. Any questions about this? Do you understand what we're talking about here? Let me go through this just for a moment. 1981 to 1995 was the Journal of Reality Therapy. 96 to 2009 was the International Journal of Reality Therapy. Also, during that time period, there was 2 or 3 years or 2 or 3 issues of the International Journal of Choice Theory. That's even on this website. So all of the Journal of Reality Therapy and the International Journal of Reality Therapy and the International Journal of Choice Theory are here. If anybody, and I know this is a hardship, but because the journal has been published, but it's not available anywhere, this is the only access point that you can go to get all 3 of those journals. So that's really a neat blessing. Okay, are we ready to move on? I hope. All right, I don't see any graduate students out there or hopeful graduate students, so I won't spend much time on this first one, but securing information about where, when, and how to achieve a graduate degree. When I was at the University of Illinois, I was the credentials analyst for the graduate program in the College of Education at the University of Illinois. Everybody came through me, and that was an incredible experience. So if people have questions with regard to, are my credentials complete? What do I need to do, etc.? I am a very good contact person to make that happen. However, there is also, is everybody familiar with the graduate study in psychology? It's a book that's put out annually. It discusses everything that you need to know about graduate programs in psych, every psychology program in the country. All right, it covers requirements, it covers deadlines, discusses second chances. Well, I'll tell you about these second chances. Historical information and beyond. It's published annually, and hot diggity, I'm telling you, if you know people that want to go to graduate school in psychology, this is the source. Everybody have that. Now, second chances. Everybody needs to, if they're going for graduate entry, getting things in November, December is usually the very best idea for scholarships and for assistantships. But I discovered, most of this is discovered by me personally. In May of 1969, yep, 1968, May of 1968, I had the opportunity to get turned on at the University of Illinois, and my wife and I were driving back going, oh, darn, darn, darn. And we were driving by Illinois State University, and we thought, oh, that's a gorgeous campus. We stopped off there. I walked in, and I discovered that they had assistantships and things, and I qualified right out of the door in terms of being able to get an assistantship be admitted. This is May. I started in June. And I even found an apartment 150 feet away from my 7:30 class. So life was really great. May is a great these programs that they've accepted people into. And everybody thought, and this is covered in the graduate study in psychology, they tell you how many people applied, how many people were accepted, and how many people attended. And I've got to tell you, all the people that were accepted did not come because they were accepted in numerous programs. And so the person has to decide, which one am I going to accept? So by May, they know who's not coming. But they've got all this assistantship money, all of this fellowship money, and they've got to do something with it. So May and July are your two back doors. If you have students that haven't gotten into the program of their choice and are really, downtrodden, I did the same thing in July. A year later, I was driving by with my wife, and she said to me, "Why don't you go in there and see if they'll accept you into the program?" And I said, "I was turned down a year ago. I don't think they're going to change their mind." Well, they did. And I got in. This is July, and I didn't have a credential with me. The department chair said, "Hey, get it in to me within 48 hours. And if everything you've told me is true, I'll accept you into this program guaranteed, and I will have an assistantship for you." Outstanding. So if you understand the nature of these programs, which I definitely do, I can help people to get into graduate programs better than they could possibly have imagined. But the May and the July back doors are critical. Okay. Any questions about that? And I have my phone number at the end of this presentation. You'll be able to get that. If you have any questions, call me. Next one. Sources, resources about the development of writing opportunities. Now, I've published 350 journal articles, referee journal articles in 35 different journals. I'm also the editor of the journal. There is a source, Kenneth Henson, in the Phi Delta Kappan. Now, all you have to do is Google it. All you have to do is Google it. Kenneth Henson, Henson, Phi Delta Kappan. He has 4 different issues that he comes out with, all sorts of great information. Okay, we're dropping down. Characteristics of selected journals. Number of readers, all right? Acceptance rate. Is it refereed? Theme issues per year. Preferred length. You're going to get all of this. This is all published, and I've got to tell you, since you don't have this information, I'll show you what this page actually looks like. Oh, all right. It is magnificent. It gives you all the journals down this side and then all the keys across the top. And it tells you, for example, let's take Phi Delta Kappan, which is a really good journal. All right. The print is incredibly small. Phi Delta Kappan. Okay. The acceptance rate. 4%. 4%. Now you might say, holy smokes, well, I'll never get into that one. Stay tuned, because I'll tell you how you can get even into the Phi Delta Kappan. It is incredible. Even though they've got a 4% acceptance rate, there are back doors. Don't you love back doors? I love back doors. Okay. So you can go down. There are about, I would guess, 60 journals here. All of this information, I've only got a few. These are the journals I've actually published in that are on here. But if you will, all of these questions are answered for you in these sources. You go to the Phi Delta Kappan, you go to Google, Kenneth Henson, put in Kenneth Henson's name and Phi Delta Kappan. They will give you all of this information 4 different times from 1988 to 2008. Let's see. All right, moving on. Are there any questions on this page before we go on? I don't want to skip anything for you. The most important ones, acceptance rate. Most of this information, no one ever does this. Knowing how long it's going to take for publication. I know some journals that will take 6 years to publish your journal, publish your article. 6 years. I would mention it by name, but they have back doors for that too. They'll tell you it'll take 6 years to get published in the journal, but if you pay an early publication fee, they will put you in earlier. Never mind, that's another story. Okay, moving on, next page. Oh, this is interesting. This is not going to be in your handout when you get it, but this is fascinating. Which journals generally publish what? Now you have, these are the topics: education core, general psychology, cognitive psychology, developmental psychology, research methods, sociology, reading, and science. Now, this was published in the Educational Researcher, and they tell you that in the educational core, there are 12 journals that want articles that are related to the educational core. In Gen Psych, there are 12 journals. And if you look down and see all these stars, my stars, okay? Those are good. Those are journals that are actually looking for content in the general psychology area. 12 different journals are looking for content in that area. Cognitive psychology, there are 8 journals looking for content in that area. Developmental psychology, there are 6 journals. Do you see how this could be helpful? Do you see how this could be helpful to you? I'm serious. This is very, if you're submitting to the wrong journal, you're locking yourself into a rejection letter before you know it. So you need to know which journals are looking for what you've got. And let's say that you're into general psychology or developmental psychology. You would look down here and say, all right, the American Psychologist is big with regard to general psychology. Harvard Educational Review is big. Journal of Abnormal Psychology. So you go down this and you look at all those stars and you say, my stars, those are the places I will be applying, submitting my material. Any questions on this? Moving on. All right, what I encourage everyone to do is read extensively, then adhere to the following. Write it right, and most importantly, write it right now. Timeliness is very important. If you're doing something that is timely, you need to get after it. Also, write concisely, write simply, and always strive to focus upon theories and findings that have great heuristic value. Does everybody understand what great heuristic value is? Great heuristic value means everybody is interested, everybody is talking. I'll tell you a cute story. I went to the Southwestern Psychological Association meeting once, gave a presentation. Our left-handed people are the only ones in their right minds. Okay, strange, but I had all sorts of people come in and I told them about this. You take your thumb and you line it up on some distant object with both eyes open. Then you close one eye and see if the thumb moved, open the other eye, and then close the other eye and open the other one. And you do it again, you'll see which eye your thumb stays in place for. Well, this is cute because there were only so many people that were at the presentation. But throughout the rest of the meeting, and my wife got a big charge out of this, we go into rooms and people were doing like this all the time. Why were they doing this all the time? Because people that had been to my presentation had thought that was so interesting. They were sharing it with others, and people were walking around throughout the meeting doing this. That's heuristic value. If people want to know about it and are willing to explore in order to figure it out, that's cool. Okay, moving along, collect invaluable theories and then explain how they interact with each other. That is one of the blessings that I've had in my education was that I had social psych as my minor through my undergraduate, master's, and doctorate. And I learned more darned interesting theories. And I was even, when I woke up at 4 o'clock this morning to get ready to make this well, my dogs woke me up, to be honest with you. But at any rate, I was going to write down all the names of the theorists and all their theories to say, this is so great, because that's the essence of valuable theories. When people will keep those in mind for years, and I'm telling you years, and try to interact with these theories one with the other. It's so cool. Logically link your ideas into theories to create your pending hypotheses. Okay, so if this is true, whatever the theories are, then, and you come up with whatever the then is, and that's what we're talking about here. If then, whatever your hypothesis is. Now, seek out the processes to foster change. That's your independent variables. Seek out the processes. Now, I don't care if you're into choice theory, reality therapy, anything else, behavior modification, whatever your process is, that's your independent variable. That's what you're going to be manipulating. Number 4, find assessment instruments that can gauge the effectiveness of the processes under investigation. That's your dependent variables. Now, understand if you plan to analyze your data statistically, you should always look for interval or ratio scales. And I'll tell you more about that in a minute, but I find it fascinating. Ratio scales are pretty unusual. I happen to have created a number of them, and that means that everything has equal interval as well as an absolute zero. Ratio scales mean that they are equal interval, have an absolute zero, so that they can be used to add, subtract, multiply, divide, do all the things that you do with statistics. Moving on. This is table 2. Now, this is so cool. And for everybody who isn't here, I feel really badly because doggone, published psychological assessment instruments developed by myself and my associates. You go to www.wglasserinternational.org, okay, the website for the Glasser, and you go to journals, and it has, here's the checklist. Go down this checklist. Let's say, anybody, give me one that you'd like to know something about. Give me an instrument that you might, by the way, the asterisks next to them, those are interval scaled. They are interval scaled. So those are the best that you're going to be able to find anywhere. Let's just take the revised love-hate checklist for a minute. You click on that on the website and the instrument appears there.
Wow.
You have that instrument at your disposal. Every one of these instruments, if you click on it, you've got it. Is that incredible? How many times have you wanted to have instruments to work with and go, where am I going to find them? What I'm telling you is that now you can go to the website, the wglasserinternational.org website, and go to journals and click on these things, and you've got the instrument right in front of you that you could even copy and make copies, because I have never charged people for using my instruments. So these have been developed, they're copyrighted, all of that is cool, and they're available to you at a click of your fingers. Not bad. Any questions about that? Now, that's one page. Let's look at the next page. Additional published psychological assessment instruments. Now, they went ahead and put the other instruments on the website, but they didn't know about these. This is another set of materials that they are available, they are published, and you can get to them as well. The parental rating scale, the personal history health survey, the time management checklist, all of these, the helpful hint scale for teachers, all of these are available as well. So yeah, I don't have anything that you can click on, but you can go to these sources and you can pick them up easily. Next page. All right, additional unpublished. Now, okay, I didn't start out a measurement person, but I have quickly become one. Now, who can tell me why I have developed all of these instruments? Because if I'm going to ask a question, I want to be able to answer it. And if I can't find the instrument, I am not reluctant to develop the instrument that I need. So these are all instruments that I've created in order to help me do research or to help others. I've actually had people come to me and say, I'm looking for a dissertation topic. Can you help me? And I've helped them to do that. And then they've asked, can I develop an instrument for them? And I've done that for them as well. So these are things that I have done over the years for various people. Any questions? Now, these are, it says here, these scales may be reprinted in the next issue. I haven't gotten past the editorial board yet, but I might be able to put these in the next issue of the journal if I get an approval from the board. Any questions on any of this so far? And if you're swallowing, I'm surprised because I can hardly swallow. I'm going fast enough at the speed of light, but let's move on. All right. 5, strive to maintain a high heuristic value in everything that you're doing. Always ask yourself, is this going to be of interest, not only today, but 10 years, 20 years, 30 years from now? One of the first areas that I got into that I find fascinating was the impact of parent loss on children. Okay. There are 81 articles that I've published on the impact of parent loss on children in this book. It's interesting. I had a professor while I was doing my master's degree. His mother and father married and divorced each other 8 times. I thought, now he should have been writing these articles. But the fact is that I became interested in the area because one of my graduate students said this is an area he wanted to research in. I helped him, and I got the bug to do more research, and I wound up publishing 81 articles in the area because there wasn't anything out there. In 1975, when I started, there was nobody doing research, really good research, with regard to the impact of parent loss. And so I got into it because there was obviously this need. And does anybody know how much the divorce rate increased from 1925 to 1975? The correct answer, you'll never guess it, 700%. From 1925 to 1975, the rate of divorces increased 700%, but nobody knew. Nobody knew that much about the impact of divorce. And especially this poor guy that was teaching abnormal psychology, and his mother and father married and divorced each other 8 times. Wow. Okay. Moving on. Now we're moving off the developing manuscripts. Now we're moving into tips. Tip number 1, always employ the poor man's copyright. Who knows what a poor man's copyright is? This is so cool. And I wish I had done this every time. Believe me, I wish I've done this every time. Because what you do is that you create something, a written article, psychological assessment instrument, whatever it is, you put it in an envelope, you seal it, you put a stamp on it, and in the return address area, you put down your name and address, and then a number or something to identify what's in it. And then mail it. Because when that gets postmarked, that is now a copyrighted document. It's a poor man's copyright, but it's good in a court of law. I have done this. I've given things to people to use and to employ in their dissertations and what have you. And before I know it, their name is on the instrument. And I go, holy smokes, that is not the way it's supposed to have been. This is how you keep your copyright for the cost of a postage stamp. Is this cool stuff?
You don't open the letter.
Do not open the letter until you go to court. The only time you open that envelope is when you go to court, because the judge will say, this is, this is federally approved. This is legitimate, and I accept this has been tested. Cool stuff. Number 2, always write for presentation first, and then edit it for publication. You can't do it otherwise. You can't publish it and then present it. They believe in going to the smaller audiences first with the presentation, and then to the larger audiences with the publication. So you can present it, turn around, and I'll tell you a great way to do this. When you're presenting, you always have a tape recorder going and pick up the ideas of people that are offering them in the room, because when you go to write your article, you have whoever was in that room, and I've had some wonderful people in that room when I've presented, those ideas become part of my article. That's great. Okay. So you want to make sure you look for, always allow time after you've written something to settle and see what you pick up along the way. And after your presentation, you've got more ideas coming in, take advantage of them. Okay, let's see. Number 3, always invite prospective employers to your presentations. This is so cool. You can't go to all sorts of places on your budget unless they're paying your expenses in advance, because sometimes they'll take a month, 2 months, 3 months to repay you. I know, I've done this many times. I've had one place that paid you in advance. That was wonderful. But usually you get it afterwards. So what you do is that you invite people to come to your presentations. The American Educational Research Association is a place that I've presented, I'm going to guess 45 times offhand. And the thing is that it's a major place where people go to present presentations and to hear them. Well, if your potential employers are planning on attending that meeting, or at least somebody in that group is coming, if they sit in and they go back, they'll tell people, hey, this person can really present. You might want to, you might really want to consider them. So invite people to your presentations. Go out of your way to invite people to your presentations. Okay, number 4, you may not publish anything twice unless you have permission of the original copyright holder. Now, Bill Glasser is an exceptional person. All of his books, at least from what I understand, from what I've seen, all of his books, who owns his copyright on his books? Bill Glasser does. So he doesn't have to look for permission from anybody. But everybody else, everything I've ever published has got a copyright on it by somebody else. So if I'm going to use that information, I have to give them a call and say, do I have your permission to do this? Does that make sense? Okay, number 5, you may not present any summary of research twice without permission to do so by both participating organizations. Now, I went to a meeting, AERA as a matter of fact, in New Orleans, and this fella had presented something at the American Personnel Guidance Association, and he handed out the paper at AERA, but it had a PGA that it was presented at. Well, he was presenting it now at AERA. What was he doing? He was doubling the number of presentations he had, because he had only one presentation and he presented it twice. What did he needed to do in order to do that? You can do it, but you have to get permission of both participating organizations. You have to get permission. You can't, handing out that same paper, even with the credits on the bottom, this paper was presented at the American Personnel Guidance Association while you're at AERA, that's a violation, and you will get in trouble. So I would not recommend that, but it can be done if you get both organizations' permission. Not a problem. Number 6, when organizing your writing efforts for either presentation or publication, you probably need to follow a flow chart. Let's drop down. This is my flow chart. Now, the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 refers to the number of papers or research projects that I'm working on. Project number 1, and I'll have someplace else. Number 1 is this, number 2 is that, 3 is this, 4 is that, 5 is that. I love organization. Developed idea. Did I develop the idea? Do I feel comfortable with the idea? Check it off. Put down the date. Gathered data. Have I gathered the data? Put down the date. Have I analyzed the data? Put down the date. Have I written the paper yet? Put down the date. Have I submitted it for presentation? This is cool because there are deadlines for presentations. And so with regard to presentations, you write down the date that you submitted it, and that's good for you and that's good for the organ, and it gets you off the dime. People say, oh, I meant to send that into AERA, but you didn't get it done. You didn't get it in on time. Watch your deadlines. Make sure that in fact, you could write above what the deadline is and that you got it in before the deadline. So submitted for presentation, submitted for publication. Point number 7, Dissertations that are presented or published must have the first author be the degree recipient. I've had people had this happen, and I consider it really bad form. Uh, at one school I was teaching at, we walked in, another professor and I walked into this professor's office. And the professor's dissertation that was in the office was up on the shelf. And this professor I was with said, can I look at that? And he looked at it and said, do you mind if I write this up for publication? And the professor that we had walked into his office said, oh, no, that's fine. I wouldn't know what to do with it anyways. Who do you think took first author on that publication? Was it the guy who did the dissertation, or was it the guy who picked it up off the shelf, wrote it up and submitted it and took first author? If you did that, you are in violation of APA standards. You are in violation. The person who was the first author on the degree, was the degree recipient, should have the first authorship, period. Presentation, publication, that's the way it is. If a major, there was another instance, and I know all these stories, horror stories. One department chair at a particular university I was at required that everybody who submitted papers for publication put his name on the publication. I consider that totally unethical. I believe the APA considers that totally unethical. He was not involved in the data. However, I will tell you, the same guy who took first authorship on the one guy's dissertation, this is another story. He worked with two people, an assistant professor and a department chair, on a project. And he submitted for publication as a sole authorship. Does anybody see what's wrong here? You had three people that were involved in the research. You had three people involved in the research. The department chair secured the funding. The freshman professor did the data collection, and I'll give his first name. His name is Dick, so don't be a dick. Dick wrote it up, and he took sole authorship on the article. And I was flabbergasted, because that is absolutely incorrect. I would never do that. I really believe if there's a question, put the person's name on authorship, because who cares if you've got one more sole authorship or not? The fact is that you might be able to help that person to get the bug to do more research and writing, and that's incredibly important. If you stick him and say, oh, sorry, I didn't put you on, you may have squelched him forever. Not right. Okay, let's see. Number 8. You should
Tom,
have,
may I ask a question, Tom?
sure, Steve.
Would there be any criminality in that?
This guy that I'm telling you about is now, I think, a vice president at a university. So he's gotten away with a whole bunch. It's a Big 10 university. So I believe there should be, but I have not seen it happen. I know of people that have done things wrong, and if they've gotten caught, but this guy, people have just kind of turned the other way and said, that's just Dick. And believe me, I've gone and given presentations, and I've talked about this guy, and I've had people come up to me and say, are you talking about, and I say, well, I can't say for sure. But he says, because I know I've had that same experience with him myself. And I find that unfortunate, because people just kind of blow it off. And I think it's terrible.
Yeah. It
Honoring-
just seems like it would be an intellectual property issue that, that the contributor could pursue if he or she wanted to.
Well, understand, dismissal from the position that they're in, withdrawal of the degree if it was involvement. I've known people to cheat on their doctoral dissertations and have their degrees rescinded. So you're in dangerous water, and I would not recommend it. But I've known people to do it and pretty much get away with it without any major consequence. I find that unfortunate. I would never do it. Like I said, giving an authorship to somebody, allowing a second or a third author, et cetera, I will readily do, because I'm not into doing research and taking other people's credit. I would much rather work with them. I've had undergraduate students do presentations and publications and have been able to get them into graduate schools a lot easier because they had this publication and presentation record. Why not help them to do that? Okay. Number 8, I guess. You should have a genuine interest in the topic, whatever it is you're writing about, and you're going to be spending years investigating it. Furthermore, it should have heuristic value for at least 10 years, if not now. So if it's not going to be important now, or if it's not going to be important in 10 years, why do it? Why do it? Number 9, consider topical guides that should give you some good overviews and allows you to develop a roadmap to success. Drop down. In the next issue of the journal, you will see this. The International Journal of Choice Theory and Reality Therapy Topical Guide for 2016 to 2020. Topical guide to articles published in the Journal of the International Journal of Choice Theory and Reality Therapy, volumes 36 to 40, etc. Editor's comments, CTRT related assessment scales. You can see basic needs, business, industry, and management, health and wellness issues. So if anybody is interested, let's say romance, marital, family, or non-familial relationships, here is underneath each of these headings are the articles in those 5 years that have been related to these topics. Is that cool? That gives you some really good information that you can get to quickly. Now, moving on, let's say here just for a minute. We haven't mentioned, I'm going to talk about it later, but the Social Science Citation Index, have any of you ever used the Social Science Citation Index? What it does, and this is so cool. Okay, from 1982 to present, it's available in every major library at every university and probably a lot of others. Social Science Citation Index, they go by the author's name, and you look up the author's name and the publication. So if you're looking at William Glasser, 1996, etc., everybody who has cited William Glasser, 1996, is listed underneath that citation. Do you understand what that means? The article was written in 1996. Each year, 1997, 98, 99, 2021, you look at those and they'll give you a listing of everybody who has cited that article in 1996. Do you know what you have working for you? Your reference section is going to be incredibly strong, because if that article is key and you're aware of it and you've looked it up, and now you've checked everybody who, if the psychological assessment instrument, the Rotter internality externality scale, or any of the scales that I published, you could look up Parish 1988 love-hate checklist and look down and see how many people have cited it, and they give you the references of the people that have cited it. So that gives you, if you're doing a research project, and especially a dissertation, holy smokes, when you walk in for your oral defense, you're going to know better than anybody else in that room, no matter what, because you've had all the Social Science Citation Index has brought you up to speed with regard to what was published in 1988, everything until 2021 that used that instrument. Incredible. What do you think of that, Steve?
I think that's amazing. And, you know, just in presentations, I'd love to see it just in, you know, we're always looking in presentations to relay to the uninitiated the credibility of William Glasser's work. And that just to give this a little air and to give this a, you know, to put a slide like this up and what you said, offers instant credibility to the presentation following. So I'm very impressed with that and very glad to know it, Tom.
Good.
Thank you.
And I'm serious. I've used this effectively many, many, many times. When I started out with my undergraduate degree and going to the psych abstracts and spending hours and hours and hours in the abstracts looking for articles, one trip to the Social Science Citation Index, one key inventory that I've found, and see who has cited it since, that gives you a mother lode of research that you could easily use in your article writing. Pretty neat. Okay, but at any rate, all of these: reality therapy, choice theory, other perspectives, RT-CT history research, future prospects, RT-CT practice, all of these things, bam, you've got everything right there for you from the last 5 years. Five years back. Every 5 years we have done this all the way back to the beginning of the journal. Pretty neat. Okay, moving along. Author's Guide. There's also an author's guide to articles published in the next issue. I haven't listed it here, but you can, if you're looking for a particular author, you can look up that author and see what they have cited in the last, what they've created in the last 5 years. Okay, tip number 10, here we go. Also refer to the Social Science Citation Index published annually to see who has cited blank's research since it was originally published. So there's the reference to this, what I'm saying. That is so cool, because if you go back from 1982 to 2021, if you've got something that, and especially if it's far back, because we're not going to look further back, we're going to look forward from that citation, what has been created. Huge. Tip number 11, once published in a particular journal, don't hesitate to submit it again. You get the nicest letters, I know I have, from people that they've published your work before and say, they're always appreciative of you submitting. Why would you, why would you dabble going elsewhere if you know that these people really like your work? So that's important to consider. Number 12, be willing to submit to new journals that have strong review boards. Why? Why would you want to go to new journals with strong review boards? This is really cool. If you know these guys are highly reputable and do good work, and it's a new journal, the acceptance rate is going to be pretty high. I've published in sex roles, I published in behavior modification, which both started out with high acceptance rates. But over time, the acceptance rates drop. Why?
More
Because
articles are being submitted?
they're finding out about that journal, and there are more articles being submitted. And so the acceptance rate is going to go down, and you're already in, so you're in the driver's seat. I love that. Okay, number 13, don't submit to journals that you haven't, don't submit to journals that have a particular slant of their own. Journal of Divorce. Now, I published an awful lot of 81 articles on the impact of parent loss on children, but I've never published in the Journal of Divorce. Why? Their slant and my research doesn't jive. I won't submit because that's wasting my time. I won't waste my time. I will find journals that will find what I've written to be important and not try to play their game. Okay, number 14, should you cite the editor or editorial board members of the journal? And there's actually publications on this. You should. Okay. For whatever reason, and of course it could be that you're just feeding the editor's ego, the board members' egos, etc. But the fact is that you're going to be more likely have your work accepted. Should you cite your own research? And yes, the research has shown you absolutely should cite your own research. Why? If the editorial board does not know your work, if you can document that you've actually published your work before, they'll be much more likely to say, hey, he's got a track record. we ought to accept his or her work. Okay, number 60. Is the journal of interest covered in many bibliographic databases, PsycInfo, ERIC, Sociological Abstracts, Social Science Citation Index, etc.? That is critical. The journal of interest that you're wanting to submit, if it's well reviewed and picked up by bibliographic databases, your work is going to get out much more. That's what you want. So you want to get things that are in PsycInfo, into ERIC, into Sociological Abstracts, Social Science Citation Index. Number 17. Is it best if your paper is invited for submission rather than being invited without, being published, should be, rather than being published without invitation? Most people submit papers that have not been invited. In the Phi Delta Kappan case, 4% acceptance rate. Not invited, 4% acceptance rate. However, and I'm going to cover this later, when I send out a reprint request for people, I always send a copy of other papers that I've done in that area, especially paper presentations, because they can't get a hold of these papers otherwise, so that they can send back to me and say, I'd like a copy of this paper and this paper too. Does this make sense so far? Now, I had one professor that I taught with that said, I wouldn't waste my time. They could copy their material, go to the library and get it. I'm not going to spend a stamp and do that. I honor my reprint requests. I sent 2 reprint requests to this particular individual. I didn't know who it was. It turned out he was the editor of the Phi Delta Kappan. I had 2 articles published in the Phi Delta Kappan as a result in September and October of a particular year, because the editor sent for my reprint requests. I sent them as he requested, and he said, you haven't published these? I'll publish them. If you can avoid submitting without invitation and get invitations instead, much better plan. How does that sound? All right. Let's see. Should you submit your work, especially research reports, to more than one journal at a time? The answer is no, you cannot submit to more than one journal at a time. Research reports. Now, you can send it and prepare the next one. If I've known people to do this because they anticipate a letter of rejection coming, and so they'll send it right off. But I would hope that I don't rewrite things until I get the review, and then I'll say, is it worth doing those revisions? And if it's worth doing those revisions, do it, but don't submit to that journal again, that manuscript at least, because they've already said no, submit it someplace else, but amend it if that's what's needed. Book manuscripts. Book manuscripts are really interesting. You can submit 4, 5, 6, 10 to different publishers. Did you know that? At the same time. But they usually only expect you to send a table of contents and 3 chapters. So you submit those, and then you get back and see who wants to publish it, and then you make a decision based on that and their contract to you. That's the way you do it. Now, underscore, I've had colleagues that were really good at writing books and getting things published. And I asked this one person to come and share. I do these presentations with at the universities that I've taught at. And I've invited professors to come and sit in, and I've invited professors to come and present. This particular professor said that she would not come and share her information. She said, Tom, I've spent 30 years collecting this information. I'm not giving it away. I cannot imagine that. I've spent 45 years collecting this information, and I readily give it away because I really believe I'm an educator, and I have to educate the people that I'm teaching. And this is a benefit to me to share, and it's a benefit to them to receive. So it's a win-win. Okay, number 19, we've pretty much covered, but other considerations. Journals acceptance rate, very important. Journal circulation, very important. Review time, very important. publication lag, very important. So those are things that you might want to think about. Never submit to a journal that you haven't read. I've known people to do this. Never submit prematurely. People swear that those typos got into the mail, got into the manuscript in the mail. I find that cute. And never write until you have something worth writing. Okay, those are the nevers. Number 21, co-authoring is usually a good idea because it takes advantage of everyone's related talents, and you get much more done with good co-authoring. I should tell you, I had a friend, James Necessary. His name is J.R. Necessary. He wrote me, and actually, I think he called me up, and he said he'd read my research and he wanted to do research with me. Before we ever met, we had like 10 articles published together and 15 papers presented. Actually, not presented, but 10 papers published. The presentations came, and we met at these presentations for the first time, even though we'd been publishing already. So it's kind of an interesting aside. He called up and said, "Would you be interested?" And I said, "I sure would." Okay. Co-authoring and co-presenting would be important here too. I've had people say, "Never invite other people to present with you." Are you kidding? Dick told me I had submitted to a number of major players, and I asked them if they wanted to present with me. And Dick said, "You're wasting your time." My wife and I were at her mother's house for Christmas one year, and this box came in the mail. And it was a professor from the University of Hawaii. And he said, "This is what we're going to do. This is where we're going to submit it. And call up so-and-so and so-and-so and tell them I'm on board. They'll be on board." Opportunities. My favorite quote is, "Never worry about whether or not you have a good opportunity. Just be sure you're good to every opportunity." That is key. And to not invite people to work with you is a mistake, oftentimes a mistake. Now, number 22, don't co-author with those who will not carry their fair share of the load or that will cheat you. And I've known many, 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 many people and different ways of cheating. And just turn the other cheek if that happens, and don't do it again. Dick has gotten me a number of times. Okay, tip number 23. Always on a reprint request. I've covered why. Those are, if anybody sends you a request, they are looking, and you should send that reprint request and then send that related checklist so that they can send it back to you and say, "I want this and I want that and I want that." Item number 24, tip 24. Always send listings of, this ties in, always send listings of your related research, presentation write-ups done by you too. Number 25, get your brief bio into the International Journal of Choice Theory and Reality Therapy. Never let it be said I didn't put in a plug. The journal is having the brief bios again published this next issue, but you only have a couple more weeks till March 1st to get your brief bio in. Why get your brief bio in? Why get it in? Who will benefit by you putting that brief bio in? Number one, historically, your document is going to be among, let's see, I have, okay. Way back here.
I'll get it. I'll get it.
Okay. The last issue of the journal, and I've got to tell you, I have a bookcase over here. This is the last issue of the journal. Okay. And I have this for all of my 11 years that I've been doing this. So you look in here and you've got all these brief bios. That's a historical document that you will not be able to ever replace. And if you didn't get your material in, I actually have, hold on. I don't have it here. The thing I'd like to share with you, there are different countries that are well represented. Canada, the United States are well represented in terms of in here. Canada and the United States. Japan, I think, has one or none. Korea has one or none. Australia is well represented. Gee, we have all sorts of members in these different countries, and no one has gotten their brief bios in. This is a way to communicate between each other. This is an opportunity for people to know what you're doing, and an opportunity for them to call you up or write to you and say, how would you like to do a presentation for us, do a co-authorship with me, do this, do that. I mean, Gary Applegate was one of my instructors way back when I was getting certified. And my favorite quote from him is, invisible is miserable. I am asking you to get your material in for the International Journal, for the brief bios, not just for my sake, but for your sake. And I mean, I just love to help people to succeed. I see myself as being the wind beneath. If you want to know how to get into graduate school, I'm available. If you want to know how to write for research, I'm available. I love helping people. That's something that I do, that I enjoy doing. And this is just one documentation of that.
Hey,
Okay.
Tom,
Yep.
in the brief bio, what should that look like? And do we just send it directly to you?
Okay. Number one, the last issue has like 79 or 84, somewhere in that area, brief bios. I don't require any particular, you can't go beyond 2 pages plus an extra page. I'll give you a little bit more on 2 pages for your brief bio and an extra page for what you are able to do for people during this particular period in history. With the COVID virus going crazy, we have opportunities to teach via Zoom and other ways. If you do that type of stuff, you should put a special section on your brief bio as to how you can help people that have special needs. I'm serious. In 1993, I had something published in the Journal of Reality Therapy, and this fellow called me up from Newfoundland. And some of you have heard the story before, but it's a great story. And he called me up from Newfoundland and he said, I've read your article in the journal and I really like it. I'd like you to come up and present to my school faculty and students. Would you be willing to do that? And I said, well, sure. And he said, how much would you charge? Now, listen, this is important. I said, well, how much have you allocated for the event? And he said, $6,000. And I said, I think I can do it for that. Now, that was incredible. Okay. How did that come about? And when I got up there, they wrote me a check and I said, thank you very much. Wonderful experience. It came about because someone called me up, saw my research and said, this I find of interest. Would you come present it with us? And then the relationship began. That's where it starts. Where is it going to end up? But writing for research, doing presentations are opportunities. I'm urging you to take advantage of every opportunity. Janet, questions or you just?
Okay. Yeah.
Okay, all right.
Tom, could we get your email? Is that?
Everything is on the last page here. You're going to get to it in about 1 minute.
Oh, yeah. Thank you, sir.
Okay. Number 26. Name the person that knows what you know best. That person is you. You know your material best. When I've been dissertation chairs or on dissertation committees, I always say, remember, when you walk in, don't feel timid. You should know that this material better than anybody else in the room. You should know it. Now, I've known people that didn't, but you should know it better than anybody. If you take what you know and you put it into that discussion section, and this is critical, heuristic value comes out of discussion sections of papers. Heuristic value comes out of discussion sections of papers. When you've got data and you write it up and you give an interpretation, you are creating a new aura, a new image that nobody else is really familiar with. Okay? Nobody else is familiar with what you're about to put in here because you know the data, nobody else does. It might take a year or two for your data to get out. In the meantime, you're writing your next article or articles. What you put in your discussion section is food for you to, is a springboard for you to be able to jump ahead. You should be taking advantage of your discussion sections, creating heuristic value, sharing ideas that will springboard you and others in terms of understanding for years and years to come. Does that make sense? Tip number 27, tips on how to improve your employment opportunities. Well, believe it or not, I was the personnel director for Ampex Corporation. Your experience. And I've written 2 articles, one, Parish and Burdinsky, which was published back in, I think, 2013, volume 31, pages 44 to 48. Another one that's coming out soon, and we'll look at that in a minute. Drop on down. But the next, before, well, let's go out all the way down, all the way down, all the way down. One more. Okay, here it is. This is the job interviewee's alphabet. Now, I've asterisked some that I like the best. G, go alone and never with others, even if you're with your favorite sisters or brothers. We really get ourselves in trouble by taking people with us, and I've had people do it. We've had a friend that took a guy with him across the country to all of his interviews, and he couldn't understand why he didn't get the offer. He was turned down at every turn. He took this guy along. It was like a bump on the log, and it killed him. Okay, let's see. Interview for jobs while you already have one. Otherwise, your efforts won't wind up with much fun. Understand, if you don't have a job, finding a job is tougher because people say, why doesn't he have or she have a job? They think that's highly suspect. Don't leave your job until you have the next one lined up. L, leave a lasting impression, a lasting positive impression, leaving them wonder if you're straight from heaven. Understand, if they won't let you out that door. I've had people, they insist that you sign the contract now. I'm not kidding. I have a friend, David Valley, that had that happen to him, and they barred the door and said he couldn't call his wife, sign, and he signed. And it's an incredible story because he went home and Purdue called, and Purdue offered, and he said, oh, well, I have to have 2 graduate assistants for research, 1 teaching assistant. I don't want to teach more than 2 classes. And the dean said, I'll make it so. And then David went to his advisor and said, I've got this offer for teaching undergraduates courses and what have you in large sections, or I could go to Purdue and have this. What should I do? And the advisor said, if you don't accept the position you've accepted, I will never write another letter of recommendation for you. So he lost the Purdue opportunity, and he had to call the guy back and say, no, I'm sorry, I can't do it. Don't let them force you to sign something prematurely. Say, I need 48 hours. I need to talk to my wife or my husband or whatever, and make sure this is the personnel director in me. You call the other people that you've been interviewing with or on the line, and you assure them that other opportunities have become available and that you need their decision immediately, because in 48 hours, 24 hours, I've actually done this. And the company would call you up. I've given them a deadline of 5 to 12. And at 5 to 12, the phone rang, and I had my future lined out for me because I told them, I educated them. that this is what they needed to do if they wanted to get me, because at noon I was going to go to lunch and sign a contract. So keep people informed, but don't close the door on yourself too quickly. At any rate, look at all of these things over because they're really great. Now let's back up. And this is in the next issue of the journal. So this is coming out too. Let's back up one more right here. Pluses for those who publish or present papers. I don't remember who came up with this, but this is great stuff. Editor's acceptance letter is wonderful. It'll boost your ego, like especially if it's your first acceptance. It really is a big lift. Student collegial respect enhanced. People respect you more if you become published. Broad audience appeal, readership, libraries, abstracting services. Your reputation is being developed. Secondary citations are also a plus. You'll find your name appearing in books, published books, other people citing your research. That is a lot of fun to go through and see that. Invitations to consult. Hot diggity, you're talking some real opportunities. More likely to receive scholarships, assistantships, fellowships, or increases in salary and or rank. I've got to tell you, the poor professor that walked in with Dick and me, he was a really good professor, but he didn't publish. And he got no pay raises and no promotions. And Dick and I went zooming by him. And I'm going, what a shame, because, you know, he didn't try to take advantage of even his dissertation, he gave away to Dick to take the first author. I found that terribly unfortunate. And unfortunately, his wife developed MS, and it just didn't go well for him. It just did not go well. Number 7, royalties from books, chapters, tests, inventions. All of these are things that are available to you. 8, many long-term payoffs that often snowball. Being cited in the Social Science Citation Index is an example. Why is that? Because other people, because you've got your citation in the index, all the people that are citing you, do you understand? The more people that cite you, the more people are going to cite. It's a pyramid. It's a pyramid of respect, and you should be able to appreciate that. Number 9, quite often you'll have many more career choices over time. People, if you're winning, you'll have more opportunities to win other places. Understand tenure, and tenure is disappearing fast. But tenure is something that is for the people that want to stay in place and are not willing to move. I have always thought if I need to move, I will move, because my advancement is what I thought to be most important at that point. Number 10, others will seek you out to co-author with you, JR necessary, or offer you sweet consultantships along the way. Number 11, your brief bio listing should certainly help here too, especially by including information regarding your special skills and experiences that might have a great value to others in these very difficult times that lie ahead. I think that's it. And I think I'm close. I'm early. I'm impressed. I'm telling you, there's time for, well, there's time for questions. Anybody have any questions?
Tom, I think this was amazing information, and I appreciate you so much in sharing this. I mean, this has really opened up some insights, and for me, that I've really not considered. I've really never published, and so now it's really kind of like pushing me into that, and I'm excited about it. So I just thank you very much for sharing this. And if you don't mind, I'll be back in touch with you.
Once again, that one page way back when, with regard to the rundown and which journals generally publish what. I just produced that myself, but it came out of the Educational Researcher. Not in the format that I got it. I put it in this format, but the Educational Research, I don't have the reference offhand. but I suspect I could probably send this to you as well. It shows you if you have a particular interest, let's say cognitive development or cognitive psychology, you have 8 journals that publish stuff on cognitive psychology. If you have developmental psychology, 6. If it's in reality therapy, choice theory, I have a great source for you. In fact, I'm looking for articles for the next issue and for everyone after that. So by all means, it's fun. You can send me something. I will review it. I will have others review it. And I don't throw things out and say, that's not acceptable. I modify papers so that they are pristine. They are good. They are strong. That's what I do. Any other questions? Go ahead.
Tom, I've been, at this for a long time now, and probably I'll retire. I really won't retire, but I'll leave St. Patrick at the end of next year. To does that affect being published? I mean, I could publish inside while being this practitioner. That's all I've done. I've been a practitioner all these years, but never published and the like, and haven't done a whole lot of research. I have a lot of anecdotal, you know, material, but with I guess it's two questions. Should is anecdotal okay? One, and two, is there a timing issue here for what's more desirable, publishing inside a practitioner's world, or say after retirement?
Well, first off, different journals have different foci. Okay, so if you're if you're not writing research papers, do not submit them to research journals because they are looking for research, research, research. The key, though, Steve, heuristic value. Do people find this important, interesting, something they want to know about? Just remember my thumb and pointing at something and having people go walking around the convention afterwards and seeing everybody doing this. That was so cool. I couldn't put my finger on the problem, but never mind. Okay. But I just think that that is really cool because that demonstrated heuristic value to the nth degree. So if you've got papers, and I'll tell you right now, as old as you are, you've written papers. And I've actually gone back and modified papers that I've written in the past that I didn't submit for publication, brought them up to date. And if I thought they had heuristic value, I would submit them. And I can honestly say to you, I probably am running about a 95% acceptance rate by my writing. And that's because I know what heuristic value means. And I know all the things that I've submitted to you today here, citing editorial board, etc. All those things, I know all of these things. So just sit down, read this over. I don't know if Janet's going to be able to get it out. I'll get it out to you if I have to. But read these things over and say, my favorite term, hot diggity. Because with all of these ideas in mind, when my oldest son was 16, we were walking out of a Dillon's grocery store. And he said to me, Dad, do you know that every day more and more doors are opening up to me? But I'm discovering that every day more and more doors are closing too. And that I have to walk through the doors that are important. I have to be very selective in order to advance the way I think I should advance. Now, he's a neuropsychologist in the Army, a lieutenant colonel, and he's about to be stationed in Tokyo, Japan. But and he wanted that so badly. He's got a wife and 8 kids, and they're going to have to figure this one out. But the fact is that he looks at opportunities just like I do, and he goes, Japan is an opportunity. And he's going to be there 3 to 4 years, and I'm going to miss him dearly. But you have opportunities. Take advantage of them to let those doors close. My 16-year-old said, doors are closing, Dad. I've got to walk through the right doors. I've got to pay attention. Guess what I'm saying to you today?
Sounds like wisdom talking, Tom. Thanks so much.
All right. Anybody else have any questions or comments or anything like that? Well, I wish we had 5,000 people here, but nevertheless, I've enjoyed presenting and I hope you've enjoyed receiving.
Excellent.
And my phone number, wait a minute, drop down. Okay, there's everything Steve wanted. My
Oh,
email address, my phone number, and you can call me. You can. And my snail mail address is there as well. And so any questions, any comments, anything that you want, I will be available. And what can I say? All right, Janet is speechless. I've never known her to be speechless. It's in.
I just have to
Further-
say thank you again, Tom and Miss Parish. I really just appreciate y'all's time and expertise and partnership, and just this is just amazing information again, and it's deeply appreciated.
Well, Janet, if you can use me some other place on, if there are 5,000 people that need this information, I'm game. All right. Thank you all.
Okay.
Make it a great week.
Amen, brother.
Happy Valentine's Day. Wait a minute. Hold on.
Thank you, Tom. I took great notes.
Good. Okay. Well, you'll get my materials as well. But
Thank
thank you
you
for
so
being
much.
here. All righty.
Bye, everyone.